Okay. What episode is this before I start?
I think it's 5.
Five.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode 5 of the Out of Potion podcast. God damn, already messing it up. It's just me and Red today. Mr. Xell is on his way out to TwitchCon.
Yes.
And so we thought we would hop on, do an episode, talk about the games we're playing, and maybe some current gaming news.
And talk a bunch of shit about him while he's gone.
Oh yeah, and just really slam down on him while he has no room to defend himself.
Terrible takes.
Yeah, just honestly the worst. Let's open with that. No. Oh God. You want to start with what you've been playing?
Yeah, I could do that. But before I jump into that, I'm also going to be at TwitchCon, so if anyone that listens is going to be at TwitchCon, hit myself up or hit Xell up, come say hi. We'd love to meet anyone. It'd be super cool. So hopefully see some of you in Vegas. As far as what I've been playing, let's see. So the New World expansion dropped, of course. So I've been playing a metric F-ton of New World, which has been a blast. It's been super fun. Kind of get back in the swing of things. For the first time ever, I've I'm not super good at the game or anything, but I've been able to keep up with current, gear and stuff. So I'm actually reasonably competitive in PvP. So that's actually been a lot of fun. I'm kind of getting to experience PvP for the first time, where I can pull my weight and do damage. So that's fun. A lot of that. I started watching this guy's YouTube videos of League of Legends, and he's just really driven my desire to be better. So I've been dabbling in League of Legends also a little bit, with just a little bit more knowledge than I had before, which is kind of a nice competitive edge.
Have you ever really done that for games?
How do you mean?
Well, I feel like for me, there's a lot of games where I would sit and watch a lot of tips and tricks and stuff like that, and I feel like you were never really in that vein. You'd kind of just go your own way. I don't think you were ever really. I mean, aside from Diablo builds and things like that.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty much correct. I think historically, I've done a lot of I'm just gonna homebrew my own thing, and it's never good. It's never competitive, and sometimes I think that causes kind of the downfall of my experience. But I mean, I think it's a balance too, because I also find that if I dive too much into the opposite, where it's I'm looking up meta everything, I suddenly find that I'm not really playing the game. I'm reading about someone else playing the game and then doing everything that they're doing, right? And
yeah.
And that kind of kills it for me over time. So I'm trying to find a happy medium with New World, and I think that's going pretty well so far.
What is New World? What is New World all about? When you get to the end game, obviously with any MMO, the leveling is going to vary a little bit, but your experience isn't going to change super, much between the different, big hitters.
Yeah.
What does the end game look like? What are your big goals once you hit that top level?
It depends a little bit on you, but the way the game's designed, in my opinion, is everything's pretty much centralized around territory ownership, which is not an individual thing, right? That's a
planet
big
side
clan. Yeah, exactly. So it's a big clan effort where ultimately the end game of New World is warring clans fighting for territory, which gives economic advantage. But for someone who's not super involved in all that stuff, the in-game content is I don't know. I don't think you ever got super deep into WoW in-game, but WoW had mythic dungeons where you could go and basically run the same set of dungeons, but on scaling levels of difficulty that kept getting higher and higher and higher. You can do that in New World too. It's called mutations, and then they added some new open world PvP objectives, which also feeds into that kind of territory control type of system.
Yeah.
Let me move you over here so when I keep looking over at you, I won't look away from the camera. Um, so that's been kind of cool, and then beyond that, New World kind of it has a little bit of a catering to a casual audience, which is good too. And that like you could literally spend your entire time in New World just like gathering and crafting if that's what you wanted to do. I mean, you could even level to max level doing that.
Oh.
So there's nothing that like makes you have to participate in anything. So I think New World's kind of a home for like ultra casual people and ultra sweaty PvP tryhards, which it's kind of a good mix. I don't think it's perfect or anything. Game's certainly got flaws, but kind of having like both in-game experiences be viable is I think pretty cool.
No, that's really cool. I don't know. I did do endgame in WoW, but the last time I took WoW seriously, seriously as you can take a video game, I used to play a lot during Wrath of the Lich King. I want to say was big for me. I fell off after that. I poked back in, I think at your behest here and there during an expansion or two, but was never able to stick too long. It just the magic ran out. I played the game so much through high school.
Yeah.
And then so much through Wrath, which for me was right after I'd left for the military. So I mean, this would have been circa freaking 2009 or 10. It's just I burned myself out on that, and no other MMO that I've played that I can think of has really been able to grasp me in the way that I've always hoped they would, comparing them directly to my experience junior year in high school. Because it was so special. The IP was so iconic at the time because we were big into Warcraft 3. So like seeing these places and characters and everything, that really feeds into it. So when it comes to a thing like New World, building a new world, god damn it, it's less for me. That's why I think the only MMO that caught my glance recently that I thought I could have gotten into, and even that I couldn't, I tried, was the Elder Scrolls. It seems like that one's got a lot of what I'd want. The only thing it seemed to be lacking was good world PvP. I could be wrong, but I didn't dive into it enough to find out.
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, WoW is just that perfect mixture of community, all your friends playing, combined with iconic IP, and then just really good content. And
yeah,
New World, it doesn't look bad to me. I own the base version of it, but nothing in the expansion. I've watched a lot of Xell's streams on it, just lurking and seeing what he's up to in there, and just nothing really popped out at me. The most interesting stuff I saw was actually from like a tutorial kind of video he posted, telling folks how to get to this specific boss that drops something, and watching the way you travel up to the boss was the part that like got me. I was like, oh, interesting. They're like doing like some jump puzzle kind of stuff, and I really like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that was why I liked Guild Wars 2 when I played a little bit of that, because that was like traversing the world was always like some of the more fun parts of that game.
Yeah, New World's got some good environmental stuff, and I feel weird saying it because this really just like isn't a me thing, but New World has such incredible sound design.
Yeah.
That like it really helps when you're playing that game. That it's like a layer of immersion that feels good. Like I find myself often feeling good while I'm playing it because the sound design is so good. Like the new zone is this overgrown jungle, and it's like the music in certain zones and the sound effects of like ruffling through foliage and stuff is it's just really cool. It's a really cool experience, which is I think it's just kind of like aesthetically pleasing, right?
Oh, it's so pleasing. Sound design is something that I feel like I've been taking for granted up until like maybe a year ago when I started listening to one specific podcast about games. I've listened to a lot of podcasts about games over the last like 6-7 years. None of them ever really talked about that. And there was one, and yeah, there's certain games where they would gush over it, and I was like, do I need to like turn my music volume up on these games? Because I always just the first thing I do is go into a menu and drop it to 0. Like, I don't want your fucking music. And so I decided to go, try to give that a chance and really listen to the games I'm playing, and was very surprised to see like how much that immerses me in whatever I'm playing. It's, Man.
This might be a hot take and a bad opinion, but I think about like going into streamers and stuff, or I'll pop into people's streams like playing New World, and when people have either their volume off or they're just like blasting their own music, I think it's actually like a big repellent, because like I feel like you're shutting off half the game.
Yeah,
even like people that play League of Legends, like I know a lot of people will play League of Legends and they'll play with like music on, and also God forbid, people play things like Valorant, and Counter-Strike with music on, which
they do. They do. They hate us. They want us to lose.
They want to hear they want 0 audio information. But like that's how I think I view like the audio experience of video games. Like it's audio information, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's aesthetic and sometimes it's informative, and oftentimes in games it can be both. And so I always, whether it's a hot take or not, I don't know, but I always feel like really repelled when I'm like watching a game or someone playing a game, and I'm hit with, music instead of the game.
Pop in, it's just Creed. No, I don't need this.
I would stay for some Creed.
I would stay for Creed. No, God, no, we're not gonna bash Creed again. I can't do this again.
You don't like Creed? I mean, it's a classic, man.
I'm lukewarm on Creed. There's a couple artists, not to get too off topic here, but God, there are a few bands that I want to love, but I can only take the lead singer's voice for like one song before I'm like, I've checked my box for the week. I can't go back to them for a week. Creed is one of them. Stapp's voice is just not it for me. It's just too... It's like he's hamming it up. Can you take me? Like, I just can't.
That's every song is someone hamming it up.
His
you listen
especially,
to metal, right? These are guys literally, they're hamming it up.
Yeah, it bugs me. I can't explain it, but I'm sure people understand where I'm coming from. There's something about it. It feels like a show that was trying to make fun of a rock band would have him have a voice like that, like there's bands that I listen to that do shit like that, but yeah, that's one of them. Offspring is another. I can only do like one Offspring song. I like the one song and then I'm like, that was it.
I wonder if this is like the Nickelback phenomenon, right? Where it's like, what happened that a light switch flipped and everyone was like, oh yeah, it's so cool to hate Nickelback. Do you really hate Nickelback?
No one hates Nickelback. Nickelback is the friend we all make fun of, but we defend them to the death.
Like that has to have an origin somewhere, right?
I think the first growing hatred of Nickelback happened when someone was able to line up 2 of their songs and they were essentially identical. I think that was probably the shot that killed Franz Ferdinand for Nickelback, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's another thing, and this is obviously way off topic, but
I know we're good. Fuck it.
It reminds me too of moist, the moist phenomenon, which is it's just what I call it, right? But it's like you ask 9 out of 10 people, what's the word you hate the most? 90% chance they're gonna say moist, and it was like, oh well, that's a good question, right? And I've asked myself that too, because it's like, where did everyone get the idea that they hated the word moist? And I don't know the answer. I'm assuming, I think it might have been like, because I feel like I've heard the source material when I was a kid or something. Like it was like a comedian or something.
There was definitely a stand-up that talked about the word moist.
I think that's it. I can't place it. I can't place who or when. But I feel like I remember being like a young teenager or something maybe, and someone did a stand-up special about the word moist, and all of a sudden everyone on planet Earth's just like, oh yeah, I hate the word moist. Yeah, it makes me feel like ugh. But it's like that was the comedian's bit, and like we just as a culture like adopted that. I feel like that's like same thing with Nickelback.
Yeah, the Nickelback hate, you talk to anybody, every time that conversation has come up more in my life than it should, but it does.
Yeah.
And every time it does, everyone's just like singing along to it. That's usually when it comes up. Is like when you're at concerts and stuff. A lot of times between sets, they play random ass music, and every now and then there's Nickelback, and you'll see people in the audience just like singing along to it and shit. You're like, yeah, there it is. Like, we all like it. We joke about it.
We all like it.
We joke about it. We make fun of it, but they're still out there just being Nickelback.
Just like we all like hot, moist cake.
Hot, moist cake in my mouth while listening to Nickelback.
While listening to Nickelback and playing some Final Fantasy VII.
Final Fantasy VII. Oh, did we talk about all your games? Is that your segue?
Yeah, that was my segue to
That was it was really smooth. I'll cut this out so that it's smooth without me calling it out. Say it again. Hold on, run it back. It was just like Final Fantasy VII. Yeah, which is what I've been playing. I've been playing the original Final Fantasy VII. We spoke about this in 2 different episodes that I am aware of. Final Fantasy VII, I played it at some point in my life, maybe all the way through. Can't remember. But never got too deep in it. Never, I wouldn't be able to tell you what the actual story was other than, like, Sephiroth, the bad guy. I'm really enjoying it. I'm playing on Switch.
How far are you?
I am... Oh, God. I'm trying to think of, like, the last major bit that happened. I think I'm currently back in the town where a flashback occurred. So, to run through the main events that I've hit. I went through... What's the main city?
Midgar.
That's what I knew it. I went through Midgar.
God.
I, left Midgar, found my way eventually to the Gold Saucer, I think. No.
Okay.
Was that the next big kind of...
No.
You do a flashback, I think, before that, where Cloud talks about his first meeting of Sephiroth and kind of what went down with that, which I will talk about. In there was a couple side places I ran into. Didn't really know how to interact with them, so I didn't bother too much. I did get Yuffie, or however you say it. Yuffie. I went to Red 13's home and spoke to his grandfather and did that part of the story. And then I went to the Gold Saucer. I got sent to prison. Did a chocobo race, got out of prison, and now I think I'm back in Cloud and Tifa's hometown, where Sephiroth is currently. Spoilers for Final Fantasy VII, by the way. Up through where I'm at, which is still technically Disc 1. I think it'll tell me when I'm in Disc 2, but that's about as far as it goes with that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure how that'll work.
I think it does tell me. I think it'll inform me. But
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm currently on my way back up that mountain where his mom is, so to speak.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that's Nibelheim.
Yeah.
And then Mountain Nibble.
Yeah. So I'm on my way up the mountain, which is I'm gonna open. So I want to give my thoughts on different things about it. I'm gonna open. I'm not gonna try to sandwich positive, negative, positive. I'm just gonna start with the negative because there's not much, and then I'll go into the positive. My negative is that there are way too many fucking encounters with monsters when you're trying to do anything. God damn it. Sometimes it's fine. In the open world, it's fine. It happens every 10 seconds or whatever, you smack into a battle again. But when you're in some of these little fucking caves and you're not in the open world and you're in a cave and you see a chest over there and you're like, I want to get that chest. Let me try to figure it out. I'm going to go up and down this hallway 3 times to figure it out. In that up and down, segment that should take me 30 seconds, I got into like 5-10 battles. It was just it was just nonstop. Like, it was hitting me. I couldn't get 4 feet in some of these places without getting into a fight. Sometimes it's fine, but like there's certain moments where the situation seems so pressing. Like, we got to get up the mountain and get to Sephiroth. Like, something bad's going down. Fuck, it's 3 lizards with top hats for some reason. Let me kill those. Okay, and then 3 more lizards with top hats. And then you walk up and there's a spider web that your character has to touch. And you know when you touch it, you're going to have to fight a spider. Yup. And then I get through the spider web. I finish the one that the fight I knew I had to do. And on the other side, there's 3 more lizards with top hats. And it's just like, sometimes it's too much. And at those times, I'm very grateful for the analog buttons. You can click in your thumbsticks on the Switch. You click in one and it'll engage 3 times speed. And you click in the other and it'll engage God mode, which just gives it like essentially infinite limit break, can't die.
Got it.
And to be clear, I don't use those all the time. No, I really don't. Like, when I'm just, like, in a town, if I was in Nibelheim going through there and, like, in that flashback and talking to Cloud's mom and all that kind of stuff, or, doing the whole bit with Sephiroth, which I will talk about as one of the positives. God, that part was amazing. But there's times, most of the time, I don't have 3 times speed on, and I don't have God mode on. But in those moments, like in the open world, I wasn't turning on God mode. I was just fighting things out. But when it came to like getting stuck in that cave, I was like, "Fuck it!" Like, it's
speed on through.
Yeah, it's integrated well where it doesn't speed up the sound, like it doesn't fuck with the music. It forces it off during certain cutscenes. It forces it off during like when you go into the menu and stuff. So like you're not like in this weird like, like flooring it and then slamming on the brakes while you're playing. Like it's integrated really well. And yeah, I use it just in those times to kind of cut out the fat where there's not what I consider like the meaningful substance of the game.
Yeah. And
so that aside, which I will say, I think that might be my only negative. The game is amazing. Right away, I don't know if it's just because through osmosis, just my dad playing it all the time when I was a kid. All the songs were hitting me. Every single area that had any kind of music, every single song is iconic. Like I recognize it. I'm appreciating it. I'm soaking it in. All the areas, the backgrounds are so beautiful. The dialogue is really good. Like the writing and just the way that it's laying out this story is, as currently. Like I said, I'm not really familiar with the story, but like Cloud is definitely like this unreliable narrator where he says shit to Tifa about their past and like she's like, I don't know, and then he's like, the fuck you talking about? And then like whenever he has those thoughts, like there's a flash of white on the screen to like let you know that like he's fucked up, like something's going on here.
Yeah.
What's the disconnect? And it's really cool, and the way that they were able to create this really cinematic pacing and unveiling of certain things in such an old game was just really impressive to me, because I mean this was like early PS1 as well. Like
it was.
People were just figuring 3D out, and they somehow nailed it.
Oh, dude, yeah, I mean, almost a decade ahead of its time.
So many pieces of it were just like flooring me. Like I thought it was so cool that one of the opening things you do when you leave Midgar is you have to get a chocobo. You have to go to that little farm, and they teach you how to catch one. And they're like, you need that to get across the desert, or else the sandworm's going to murder you. And I thought once I was on the chocobo, I was home free. So I get on the chocobo, and I run the desert, and I stop, and the worm catches me anyway, and I get murdered instantly. The big sand snake. Yeah. And so I had to do that part again, which, by the way, extremely frustrating. Catching a chocobo with Geishel greens, that is another negative. Fuck that whole thing. Because your character, if an enemy dies, your character will auto-target something else. And so I murdered 10 chocobos. Like, I just... Ugh. But then doing all of that, getting across the desert, only to find immediately that Sephiroth had just offhandedly impaled a snake on top of a massive pine tree.
Yeah.
And you're just like, that's who we're hunting him. Like,
It's been a long time, but I think they were called Midgar Zolas, if I recall. And it was like
this,
as you're trying to cross that swamp.
yeah, it just so it immediately lets you know how big of a threat he really is. Like, oh shit, dude, this thing
Yeah.
one shot me a second ago. I had to like circumvent seeing one at all, and this dude just like slapped one onto a tree. Like, what?
See, and you know, I just to interject real quick on two things. One, when you brought up the music, you reminded me my favorite part of Final Fantasy 15 was that while you're in the car, you could change your radio station and you could swap between like all the top hits of like the previous Final Fantasy games.
That's amazing.
And just as you said, it was like I found myself like being able to recall these songs and like what was happening during those songs from the games because like they're so iconic. I forget the guy's name, but he's like a revered producer, the music producer of the Final Fantasy series, like Nobu or something.
Yeah, it's on the tip of my tongue. I actually familiar with him, but yeah,
Incredibly iconic. And so that was one thing. And then you know the other thing I was just gonna say is you talked about like some of the parts you don't like the, having to use the Geishel greens, catch chocobos, and the battle systems. Or at least like the frequency of the encounters. And we've publicly disagreed about this on our on the Out of Potions Discord, which if anyone's interested, please feel free to join our Discord and take part in the discussions and the debates.
Link below.
But yeah, I there's a part of me, and I won't dive too deep into it, but there's just a part of me that loves that kind of old school. We will let you fail. We will let you miss things. We will let you fail. We will let you, we will let you chase the chocobo away if you don't trim away the other enemies carefully. We will let you die to the Zola, or we will let you miss recruiting Yuffie out of the forest. And I'm trying to pinpoint like what exactly I love about that, but I think there's a part of it that's replayability, and there's a part of it that's just like I think organic discoverability.
Yeah.
Where I feel like I'm playing the game and I'm learning how to interact with the game rather than the game just being like green exclamation point, time to tutorial you something. And just to kind of like take it even a step further, like that Midgar Zola, if that's what it's called, I can't recall, the big snake.
Yeah.
You're beyond the point now, so I'll just say it. But like, when you get into a fight with that thing, I don't know if you found the materia called enemy skill yet.
I'm not sure.
Well, it's a missable materia that you could get at some point in the game up until that point, and it's the materia that lets you, if enemies use skills on you, you can learn those abilities.
Yeah.
And then you basically use enemy abilities, and so it's like one of the things that you could do early on is get into a fight with that snake and try to bait out it using its big, like, I can't remember what the ability is called, but basically use some like big attack ability. If you can survive with 1 HP, if you can survive with 1 HP and learn it, then you can escape the battle, and now you have his skill to like go forward. And it's like that kind of thing where it's like, you wouldn't necessarily know it unless you just like spent time interacting with the game, and I loved that. So sorry to jump on a tirade there, but I just wanted to interject some of that.
No, and I agree. I there is a beauty to that. I really like a game that just wants you to poke it at all the corners and try to find out things about it. I think the presentation in this one, it can be a bit obscure at times compared to like, because you could say the same about like Elden Ring. There's entire plot beats and characters that go do things that you have to like really listen to what they say.
Oh yeah.
Try to pursue it.
That's a great example. Elden Ring is a great example of a game that I think captures that kind of magic.
And yeah, and it really was a magic. Like I was so enthralled with Elden Ring through and through, like, and it was those kind of things. I found this person, I'm like, what the fuck was their deal? And then I find him later, and then I like start chasing the threads, and you're like, oh shit, this is amazing. And I feel like that's probably that same kind of magic that people were, felt back then. But on the same note, it was so obscure that my dad had a binder this thick.
Yeah.
With a fully printed version of that guide, which, by the way, between ink and paper, he thought he was saving money not buying the official guide, but I guarantee it costs more. I guarantee it costs more with how much ink was, especially back then. But yeah, he had the entire full guide, and he would, as he was playing the game, he'd like move 5 feet and then flip the page and be like, oh yeah, that's right. So it's like, you're not poking at the edges at all. You're reading the instruction manual and letting it take you. So there's a fine line. I think a lot of modern games can make that exploration very fun, but also give you like, a little bit of push in the right direction sometimes, even if it's just making something visually interesting enough to push towards. But I do think Final Fantasy VII was still a masterpiece. Those little frustrations I have are things that even the game addressed, being like, hey, these might piss you off, like, here, use this. And I appreciated that, because that's really the only frustration I had. Really enjoying that. Let's see. Yeah, when I got through there, I think it was right after that you get to Nibelheim and you do that entire... Sorry for the sniffles and the coughs, folks, by the way. I'm coming off a sickness. I think Red might be as well. But
at the end of it,
man, you get in that town and then you start the flashback, and the way it presented the story, and that's the thing, it's a very dark story when you really look at like the substance. Like you're part of a rebel militia trying to take down the man, and there's murders left and right, and it's a really dark story. But unlike Final Fantasy 16, like, there is levity in every corner. I mean, it really is able to strike a balance so well that, like, in those moments, like, you're in this flashback and you're trying to uncover this mystery of what's going on, and at the same time you can go into Tifa's house and like go into her room, and Tifa's voice will like pop up in a bubble and be like, "Did you go in my room?" Because your character goes in there, which means because you're just telling them the story. Yeah, and she's like, "Wait, you went in my room?" And then you can be like, "Just kidding," or "Yeah." And then you can go over to her drawers, and she's like, "Did you go in my underwear drawer?" And you're like, "Just kidding."
I was about to ask if you checked the drawer.
Yeah, like, it's so funny. Like, did you lay in my bed? Like, it's just so funny to like be able to do that, and like you start to go into a building, and it'll be like, "No, I didn't go there." It's just like the way it presented that part of the game was very cool. Yeah. And that was one of the pieces where, in this whole segment, I think it's been the part where I was most impressed with the game, because following your initial time there, Sephiroth ends up going, because at this point in the game, you're his apprentice, which I thought was really cool, because when you push through those, like, the mountain with him, it's the only time in the game so far where you haven't been in control of the whole party. You're only in control of Cloud. And you swing and do 1 damage to a thing, and then Sephiroth just, one-shots everything he touches, and it all in that moment too, you're just like, fuck, dude, like, this is back in time too. Like, this guy's probably stronger now. And you fight your way up, but then once you get to this point where he's in a mountain kind of researching stuff about his origins, the presentation was so cool, because you're in this mansion and you go to look for him, and the guard that you're with says, "Oh, he went in this back room," and you go in there and there's no one there, and then you find a switch on the wall, which leads to this secret, basement, and the camera is facing straight down this massive staircase that spirals down, and you have to run the whole thing. And so you're running all the way down, and at that point, the game is like, it's a long staircase, because you're sitting here like, where the fuck am I going? Oh my god, this is taking forever. This is crazy. Like, how long this is taking. And then you go down there, and you walk like 3 more hallways, and then you talk to Sephiroth, and he's got his head in some books trying to figure out what's going on, and he seems kind of like he's a little on edge, and he might be kind of losing it. And then it immediately jump cuts to like the next day or weeks, I think it even says. It's like sometime later, like Sephiroth spent however long down there reading every fucking book. And you wake up, and there's like no one around, and there's more ominous music playing. and you have to go back, and you go back down the stairs, and at that point with the creepy music and this like dead silence, it's like something's off. What's going on? And you get down there, Sephiroth's like having an episode. He's fully cracked. The stuff he's read in this book or in all these books has led him to certain origins that have set him off. And he immediately like I can't remember, he knocks you out or he just pushes you to the side and then just like flies by you and you're like, what? And then in the time it takes you, because you have to run back up the stairs. Yeah. You have to do it yourself. You have to run back up the stairs. And then you step out of the mansion and everything in the city is on fire. Everything is razed to the fucking ground. And it was like this way of them being able to use just that space to force you to walk back up and go, oh, dude, in the time it took me to walk up these stairs, this dude leveled everything. And it was just like, you just see the way that they were able to use these old mechanics and limitations to still add to the storytelling. And I know that it took me a long time to get to that, but I feel like that was important to like state how just this staircase up and down like 3 different times affected that so strongly.
Yeah. I mean,
God, it's just...
It's a cool perspective. You know, I'm really excited for you to kind of, you know, keep pushing through. I hope you do. Because which I think is your goal, right? But
yeah, I'll finish it.
It would be really cool then to hear your opinions of how the Final Fantasy VII remake is going. You know, like I'm sure you're aware that the second part of that's coming out, I think, February of next year. And there's just a tremendous amount of excitement about that. If you haven't already, you should watch the Maximilian dude, his reaction to the announcement trailer for it.
Yeah.
You know, he really gets super excited about it, which is cool. Kind of like live vicariously through him. Yeah, man. You know, the remake takes a little bit of a different spin on things, while sticking pretty true to the source material. But telling it just a little bit different. And I think they prepare you for that. You know, I think when they released it, you know, they were saying that like, you know, it's not going to be the same as the first time around. So, you know, things are different. But it's I found it to be a really cool experience. I definitely loved it. You know, but I'd be curious to, you know, I guess I'm dying to hear your reaction.
So that is a big reason why, you know, when it comes to certain reboots and things like that, you can often jump to the current version. I thought it was really important for me to start with this version because I knew, you know, I'm aware that they have made changes, and in a lot of ways that story calls back to this version. Like it's a self-aware game that is touching on pieces of the original game and changing them with those, you know, those hooded figures, which I'm just starting to learn about in my game because I'm back in Nibelheim running into like clones and shit. I won't get too into it yet.
Yeah.
Once I'm finished with the game, we'll like, you know, fully dive. But yeah, I'm aware that everyone got kind of thrown because they expected when they saw the word remake, it was like, okay, yeah, it's a remake. But it's almost like the word remake is like story-wise too. Like, no, this is a remake. Like, things are different. And then the next one's called Rebirth. And so they're like, are certain massive plot beats from the original version going to change? And I'm aware of those already. Yeah. I don't know when it's going to happen or how. Or, you know, I know how, but when. I'll be interested to see. So my plan is to play 7 through, and I've been at a pretty good pace. I plan to play that through, and immediately when I'm done with it, I'm going to be buying, I'll buy Remake in hopes of being ready for Rebirth in Feb.
Yeah. Cool, man.
Yeah, it's really good. All the stuff with Red was like actually really like emotionally impactful. Went and visited his, you know, his grandfather and all that.
Red 13.
Yeah, and then the scene where you find his father and all that.
Yeah.
It's good.
Um, Definitely keep us up to date on your progress there. Gonna be really excited to see how you progress through there. So just looking, so I have like a walkthrough pulled up, which
Yeah.
just has like the chapters because I was trying to see like where you were. And if you're in Mount Nibble right now, um, at least according to this guide, you're like on step 19 out of 41, which surely those are not equal steps. So,
Of the whole
'cause
game?
yeah, I don't know if I would. I don't know if you're halfway through the game, but I don't know. Maybe I feel like Disc 3 might have been kind of short.
Yeah,
Uh,
so what the thing I read some small thing that said like disc 1 is, or maybe it's 2, is like the meat of the game. It's most of the
yeah,
game. And I also saw that it's not really as massively long of a game if you're mostly just doing the story. Like
yeah.
I'm not going to be stuck in this for forever. Like a lot of games, like I feel like JRPGs especially, like it seems like they're so hell bent often on like being like, no, this is a 200-hour story. It's like, nah, dude, it's fine. Like give me 40, I'll be good.
Um, I don't know if there's other games you've. Oh yeah, well I think there was some other stuff you were playing.
Yeah, here and there, I'm always, pretty much always gonna be in Rocket League, just a little bit, less so now than usual, but I will in the Discord. I will post. I've posted in mine and on Reddit, but I had the best save of my life. You don't care, but someone out there listening might.
Not in the
It
least.
the most insane save, and I saved the replay, and I recorded the replay in slow motion so that the world could see it. But yeah, aside from that, the only other game I've been playing is Balloons Tower Defense 6, which is obviously the sixth iteration of this. I mean, anybody as old as us might be aware of it. It was like a Newgrounds tower defense game with like 3 different types of monkeys that throw darts at balloons. It's just, a tower defense game, if you don't know, is like you got like a top-down map of a path that an enemy is going to travel from start to finish. And you get to place towers along the path to try to, stop them. And this game actually has a fair amount of depth in the strategies you need to use, and there's like a hero class, like almost like Warcraft. Like there's these hero units where you only get one, and you can select from a list of which ones you're going to start with, and different ones synergize with different towers, so you can actually change the way you play. And after you beat like a level on hard, it opens up this branching, these branching pathways that have different versions, like only military monkeys, which is like 6 of them, shit like that. And so it actually like forces you to like try different towers you don't use, and try to employ tactics to best utilize their terrain, because different levels have a lot of water. Then there's all sorts of different situational things like that. And I don't know, there's a lot in the game. There's a lot of different modes. There's multiplayer, apparently. There's like an Odyssey mode where you have a set amount of towers that you use, and like shared lives through multiple levels. And it seems like the game came out in like 2018, and it seems like they just continue to add events and new towers and new characters, and actually like give a shit about making it an interesting experience, which I like, because it's not a free game. I paid like $7 for it or something, so it's nice to pay a premium for a game and then not be hit with ads all the time. You're just enjoying the experience, and yeah, it's fun. It actually makes you think, and I forgot how much I missed those tower defense experiences I had back in Warcraft 3.
I have nothing to add to that, but I a game I haven't started playing yet, but I want to. I saw a lot of stuff about it. Lies of P. I don't know if you saw anything about that. It's
Oh
a very
yeah, Bloodborne
Soulsborne-esque game.
Pinocchio. Bloodborne
Basically,
Pinocchio.
yeah, yeah. So I'm wanting to kick that one into gear, see, and give that a go. I've heard really good things about it.
People like it. I have it. Actually, I have it installed already on Xbox because it's part of Game Pass.
I was watching Asmongold, and someone was like, "Oh, another." Oh well, I guess another game just came out too, or it's about to come out. Lords of the Fallen,
Yeah, it's out.
which is another like Souls-like game. Um, I was watching Asmongold, and someone in chat was like, "Oh, another shameless, Soulsborne ripoff," and he was like, "I'll play every single one of them, make them till the end of time." And I was
Yeah.
thinking to myself, like, "Yeah, that feels accurate. Yeah, it's
As
just a phenomenal genre. I can't get enough of it."
it's yeah, it's one of those things we kind of talked about, like shameless ripoffs versus ones that have a story to tell or a clear vision going into it that make them unique. And I don't know, the way the story is presented seems really weird. It's so funny that like I want to say like 5 different Pinocchio based things in media came out like within a year of each other. I feel like it must have gone into that like fair use space or something, because they all dropped at once. But yeah, I don't know. I want to run around as a little fucking Timothy Chalamet looking Pinocchio and beat up a bunch of Geppetto's robots. Just seems like a really interesting premise. And yeah, people say it's very Bloodborne specifically. Like it feels like Bloodborne, which excites me.
Yeah, that's an important distinction, right? Because Bloodborne mechanics are, I think like to the untrained eye, Bloodborne and Souls would seem like the same thing, but anyone who's played both knows that it's like very different mechanically.
God, it's a lot more like, yeah, it really rewards that aggressive play, which I like. I love that. And it kind of incorporates some of that Sekiro, like, I think it, with like the stance breaking kind of way of killing things.
Love Sekiro, man. God, that was such a good game.
Yeah, I'm going to replay that at some point. Fuck, we could just talk about that for the next hour. But, yeah, that's on my list.
What I do want to get to this episode, if we can, is just kind of gaming news, right? I think probably one of the biggest things to pop out in gaming news recently is that the Microsoft acquisition of Activision Blizzard, I believe, just went through finally.
Yes, it did.
I certainly won't pretend to know a ton about it. I play a lot of games from Blizzard. I think you would probably know more than me about the details, because I think you probably consume some media that talks about that. So I'd just love to hear, like, what is it that you know about that acquisition?
Yeah, it got halted specifically, I want to say, in Europe.
Yeah, I was aware of that part. And it was like the FCC, wasn't it? Or something like that?
FTC, I think so, because they were basically just trying to see if it was ethical. Like, they had to suss out whether or not it was ethical for one company to own this and this. Which
like,
when you
like
get
an anti-monopoly type of thing?
Exactly. Like, it's laws that try to stop one thing from being able to corner an entire market and become, a monopoly. So it ended up winning. There was so much shit that came out because of this, thousands of different Microsoft leaks and emails and what it looked like their plans were and their worries. And and the biggest parts of it really came down to worries over Call of Duty and whether or not they would try to make it exclusive, because it is such an insane cash cow for every console. So them taking that away from the other ones was seen as like, a legitimate threat to the revenue of whatever those competitors are. And I want to say the actual biggest piece of that you didn't even mention, because it wasn't just Activision Blizzard, it was Activision Blizzard King.
I don't even know what King is.
King is the company most famous for Candy Crush, which is like a $1 billion industry. Like Candy Crush.
Candy Crush is a $1 billion industry?
I don't know if it's just Candy Crush, but yeah, Candy Crush led the way. It's one of the first free apps to generate over $1 billion in revenue. Candy Crush is massive.
All right,
I
I'm looking at King right now. I see Candy Crush, a bunch of Candy Crush spin-offs. Looks like, I mean, this looks like it's very like mobile,
Yeah, oh yeah,
bubble,
but the
bubble
mobile market,
witch.
I mean, we're gamers and we're in that space, so we really don't think about it. But mobile gaming is so profitable.
Yeah. Oh, I mobile game. I
Fuck.
mobile game.
But like, to
And
people that
yeah.
are, like not in our space, like it's just yeah, it's a massive massive market. And I think that was actually one of the biggest pieces of it. Like not of the contention in them stopping the purchase, but
Mm.
um, one of the biggest pieces they're bringing on by making this purchase is getting King as well, because it makes so much fucking money.
Did Activision Blizzard own King or something?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
I think it's Activision Blizzard King technically. Like
I
if you have to say it, you have to say all of it.
Yeah, I feel like it wasn't that long that Activision merged with Blizzard, so it was just it took me by surprise, and I'm sure it's been something that's like been in the works for years or something, but it took me by surprise when I first caught wind earlier this year that Microsoft was in the process of trying to acquire um, Activision Blizzard, because I was like, man, like Blizzard just merged with Activision. Um, so
This Holy shit, man. I don't know in comparison to the Activision and Blizzard side of it,
mm,
but so Activision Blizzard bought King for 5.9 billion in 2016,
okay.
and I'm looking at the stats here, quarterly stats. Say 2023 quarter 2, King has made Jesus Christ, $747 million
Mm,
in quarter 2 alone.
yeah.
Like that's insane. It's
Activision Blizzard revenue. I just want to get a comparison. Well, it's stock price. That's not helpful.
that is crazy. I wonder if I'm trying to find out. I'm trying to make sure that this is just King, but it says just generated by King, so I'm assuming. Activision. I'm on Statista.com here.
So this is saying that at quarter end of June this year, Activision Blizzard made 2.2 billion.
Jesus.
So definitely larger than King, but King's not some small.
When it says Activision Blizzard, is it omitting King and the revenue from it?
Oh, that's a good
It's hard.
question.
I'm curious if that's all three combined. But either way, King, we don't think about that, but King it is a massive piece of that revenue, and that's gonna mean a lot to Microsoft. And I personally, I think that folks generally don't care either way. As far as us goes, I don't think it's gonna affect much. But I think generally, I'm happy with things like this, because when smaller companies, get that large company to be able to fund them, they can stop worrying about deadlines or having to do small, changes or proofs of concept that halt their development. And
Well, hold on. Let me challenge you there real quick, right? Because if we look at a studio like Larian, who arguably, didn't have a big corporate overlord with investors that, needed results, so Larian was able to make Baldur's Gate 3 over the course of many, 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 many years.
yeah, well, I mean, you also have to look at like who funded them. Like Larian was definitely had to be getting money from somebody, and when you do those things, it's surprising that Larian was able to do that, because they've been developing it for so long, and when you're in that space, you have to essentially, as a company, be like, I have this many employees that we need to pay. Someone has to pay them, so like we need the money to be able to pay them, which means that whoever our investors are have to they're going to come in and meet with us, and we have to show them like our roadmap. And so when one's that big, that's crazy to me. Like, you get into these massive games with these like 6-year turnarounds. Like, we're not going to see Elden Ring spin-offs for like 4 more years. You know what I mean? Like, that's how crazy those turnarounds on massive games are. It's a lot easier for certain companies. The thing I think back to when talking about that is the that I think I've mentioned it before. I don't know if I've done it on the podcast, but Psych Odyssey, where it's like 30 episodes following this company while they developed the game Psychonauts 2, and you get to see that in action, where they're worrying about funding and they're pitching to these companies, and then those companies go under, and then they're sitting there like high and dry, and they're thinking that all development might halt or die, and so they have to like work on side projects to create money, but then Microsoft buys them, and all the worries go away, and all the timelines fall away, and then COVID hits, and everything goes into a panic.
Well, I think it can be both, right? I think the situation you described, I think, can happen, but I think it can also be the opposite, where it's like, the bigger the corporation is that owns you, right? The studio gets further, like the corporate heads get further and further away from the game making, right? So even something like Activision Blizzard, right, is arguably getting to the point now where it's getting so big that it's like, all the people in charge are, guys looking at spreadsheets with revenue projections and things like that, and it's like all the meat and potatoes of it doesn't matter to them. I don't know for sure, but I imagine you get to a point where it's like all of the actual content, like none of that matters to them. What they care about is, hey, we've got this revenue forecast, we want to hit it, like we need like, it's time, we got deadline, we got obligations to meet. That's the kind of thing I worry about potentially. I'm not saying that's my opinion necessarily yet, which is what I want to ask you before I jump into mine is, overall, so it sounds like maybe you were kind of saying that you think this is a good thing. Is that...
I do. I mean, it could go good or bad, but I think it is a good thing as far as, I don't know, with Activision Blizzard, it was so big already. I don't know if they were ever hemorrhaging money. I feel like maybe, because Blizzard had 1,000 different missteps in a row. But with Activision attached to that, I don't think it was ever a worry.
What's best case scenario, worst case scenario?
I think best case scenario is that Microsoft owns them, which means I get to see a lot more, these games I would otherwise have to pay for show up on Game Pass. That's really, best case for me. But then also, you bring studios together, you get a lot more eyes on things, and you might get more interesting changes or ideas or new games coming out of these companies that have made, big games in the past. I think that would be really good and big. Worst case scenario, I don't know. I don't think there is really a... If it was smaller companies owning these or something, I don't know. I feel like they're too big to fail, right? At least...
Well, I don't know. So it's definitely something I'm very interested in because I'm a very active Blizzard game player.
Yeah.
Always have been, always will be. Always will be, I don't know. Because I think Blizzard used to be like first in class for everything that they did. I think you had kind of said this before, but Blizzard used to like take a concept and then just make the best version of it.
Yeah.
And that was kind of Blizzard's thing for a long time. I mean, they had the Diablo franchise, which really peaked probably at Diablo 2. Overwatch was it was a massive hit, at least for a while there. Obviously the Warcraft franchise, spun from like a very small RTS type game that blew up into a big RTS type game that blew up into the MMO RPG.
The MMO. God, that was so good.
I mean, at one point Blizzard was on top of the world, when it comes to the gaming industry, and I feel like, they've been kind of sliding downhill, even in quality, innovation, things like that.
It's the lack of innovation, and like it gets to a point where you stop seeing that creative, like it feels like the magic died on their end sometimes. Like when you look at it now, a lot of these decisions just feel like it's like wringing money and everyone's getting upset. I mean, Diablo 3, the massive auction house issues and all that kind of shit, like everyone's just like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like it feels like you're trying to wring money out of us. And then like expansions were coming out that were disappointing people for WoW for a while there. I remember it was just like, it's lackluster. Like, you're just getting more of the same. And
You remember Hearthstone coming out?
yeah,
I mean, that was like, Hearthstone was also like a gaming cultural phenomenon. Hearthstone was this massive, massive thing, and Hearthstone was Magic. I played an ungodly amount of Hearthstone when it
same.
came out, but over time, if you were to log on to Hearthstone today and play a game of it, it is unrecognizable from when it first came out, and that's not necessarily inherently a bad thing, right? It has been out for many, many, many years now, but it's unrecognizable in some ways that I think rob the game from the accessibility that it had when it
Yeah.
first came out. Where like it was a relatively simple concept that anyone could pick up and play, and then sure you could master it, and it really became like a microtransaction machine with the dozens of expansions that have come out for it, things like that. But I think that's kind of like the Blizzard story right now. I think you can basically take that same thing and apply it to almost any of their games right now, where it's like, yeah, I don't know, something happened, the magic's kind of gone, and now it's this microtransaction machine.
It God, and then there's like, it feels like there's a lot of broken promises, and it feels like there's a lot of like really huge missteps, like the fucking Diablo Immortal thing,
Yeah.
where it's just like this full disconnect of like, you guys don't have phones, like what the
Warcraft
fuck?
3 Reforged.
Reforged was so, I was really excited, and then it was disappointing, and the Overwatch 2, you may disagree with me on this, but like, man, that was just an update. Like, I played Overwatch 2, and it's like, yeah, y'all changed like team comps a little, but like that's an update. The game doesn't look different. There's more maps. This was an update. You promised things that you never delivered on. Like the core shit that you were trying to get people excited about Overwatch 2 for didn't even end up being like a factor, a thing. It just really felt like another way to be like, fresh coat of paint, give us more money, please. And
Yeah, and I don't necessarily want to segue this into Riot, necessarily. I think that would be another good like episode on its own. But like, we've talked about this before too. But like the modern day Riot reminds me of what Blizzard used to be, where it's like Riot's now filling that void, where like now they're taking the best in class of everything. And,
they are.
They're innovating, and everything they touch turns to gold. And it's so reminiscent of like what Blizzard used to be for me. So to tie that back into kind of the topic at hand, which is the Microsoft acquisition of Activision Blizzard, I think best case scenario, somehow, some way, I wonder if Microsoft can save Blizzard, because I have a legitimate fear that Blizzard could go under, or at least I thought that it could happen. Blizzard could, dry up, and fall away, and I would love to see Blizzard return to its former glory. And maybe, best case scenario with this acquisition, maybe there's something in there that can enable that. I don't know what went wrong at Blizzard. Worst case scenario though is all the things that are wrong with Blizzard right now could potentially get worse. Especially if it's like, again, everything's just driven off of, a need to line the pockets and increase profit margin and things like that. Like maybe that gets worse under Microsoft.
I mean, they're gonna make big changes.
Yeah.
I mean, let's see, the CEO of Activision Blizzard is getting booted out the door at the end of the year.
Yeah.
For one, so that, like they got the company and immediately were like fucking like, there's obvious changes that are gonna happen.
Yeah.
And I hope that those are changes that aren't, obviously everything in a company that big has to be money driven, but hopefully they do that with the intent to create good games and not just more ways to wring money.
Yeah.
I hope that, those things, I understand that these games have to make money. They have to.
Yeah.
But I just hope that the focus doesn't just go on these various kind of soulless transaction, grabs that are meant to wring money out of folks. And I don't think so. I feel like Microsoft's always been doing stuff. They're really big in, game preservation and putting a lot of stuff on Game Pass and like trying to actually become this force for, you know, like everything games. And I don't know. I think that's exciting.
Yeah, you know, a little bit unrelated, but just like on the topic of Blizzard and, you know, World of Warcraft and stuff like that. Going to BlizzCon in November, so
Yeah.
that's going to be super fun. And one of the rumors that's going around, maybe less of a rumor and more of just like a hope, is people are hoping to hear an announcement for something like WoW Classic Plus, which I don't know if you ever heard of this concept.
No.
Well, so, you know, WoW's got, you know, a dozen expansions or whatever, and, you know, now they're in Dragonflight and all that. And WoW Classic has kind of like regained a lot of popularity, you know, when Classic released, and then now like the hardcore Classic servers are out. So what people are hoping for is that Blizzard will basically return to WoW Classic and basically just start from there again. And that could mean a few different things. It could mean either now they make an expansion off of WoW Classic, essentially like starting the train over,
Like a new expansion.
like a new expansion.
Like not
but,
Burning Crusade. Like they find a new one, but they do
Yes.
it off of the level 60 cap.
Yep, off of Classic, or just releasing new content within the confines of WoW Classic.
That'd be kind of sick.
Yeah. So, you know, kind of interesting, right? Because it's like WoW Classic is where all that magic was, and, you know, I don't know, you know, whether that's nostalgia or genius design. You know, it's hard to say. I'm sure that's a whole debate within itself, but, you know, a return to vanilla WoW in different ways could be interesting, especially if you start applying new content to it.
Didn't that one dude just come back to Blizzard?
Yeah.
Chris Metzen.
Yeah, I
Wait,
heard of him. I don't know exactly what he did.
I mean, shit, dude. He was like essentially one of the main creative minds behind Warcraft and Starcraft. Like a lot of the main plot beats, characters, you've heard his voice in the games. He was just like one of those people that you would consider one of the hearts and souls of that franchise, who had an obvious love for it. I think I want to say he like retired or stepped away, but he returned.
Yeah, it says he was the lore chief, and he's returning after 7 years after retiring.
Yeah, so like I feel like that probably, I mean, that would get me excited, right? Like this dude who, you know, has been in this franchise and has deep love for this franchise is back at the helm. Well, maybe not at the helm, but he's back in there.
Yeah,
like that could mean a lot, you know, especially his time away could really affect that in a positive way. I don't know. I think that me personally, what I would want to see in the way that I would get back, I don't think I would ever return to WoW Classic. You know, like I spent years in WoW Classic when it was Classic. I spent years in the Burning Crusade and Wrath, and it fell away from me. I feel like I want something base, like new, and I see no reason at this point why they can't just be like WoW 2. Like, why not? Or
I would kill for it.
WoW 2, or fuck it, dude, fucking World of StarCraft. If that shit popped up on a screen, people would lose their fucking minds. Like, yeah, give me the WoW experience in a new engine with modern MMO shit that WoW really can't do the way, like, you look at these new MMOs. There's a lot of interesting, like, movement, just little mechanical in-engine things that WoW just can't keep up with because it's, you know, it's old.
I feel like there's so many great franchises that could break into the MMO space, or they have broken into it, but they weren't super successful.
Yeah.
Like, you know, even outside of Blizzard stuff, you know, dude, where's the AAA best-in-class Star Wars MMO? Or where's the AAA best-in-class Lord of the Rings MMO?
There was like, well, I mean, maybe not best in class, but at a time it was. The people loved the Star Wars MMO.
I mean, did they?
Yeah.
What's its name?
Well, there was, Star Wars Galaxies, and then there was The Old Republic, I think is what it was called. No,
that's what I'm saying, though, is like, you know, I'm sure they had like a player base and stuff, but like, it didn't take over. You know, they weren't World of Warcraft. They didn't take over the world,
Yeah.
right? I think they probably had these like niche player bases, but like these are franchises that are massive, and it's like, you know, I,
I think the
maybe some of those
issue
MMOs are still alive, but like there's no way they're thriving,
I
right?
want to say the issue is that those are massive endeavors that require constant upkeep, and
Uh,
there's a lot of easier attacks on those IPs and those things that can still be profitable and be way less intensive on like your workforce, because like that's like trying to make another WoW is dedicating so many people to an idea and hoping it kicks off. But when there are like MMO lights in the vein of Destiny, like
mm,
these those live service kind of games, like I feel like that was that natural evolution for a lot of people that is probably a lot easier to upkeep when it's so much smaller scale. Not saying Destiny 2 is a small scale game, but like in comparison to these massive worlds where you have to be constantly feeding in new content like that, those things are
I
just a big endeavor, and I feel like there's other
yeah.
smaller answers to that nowadays that folks are going to go for
I
first
I
usually.
just I want it though, man. I want it.
I know.
I want that net new MMO rooted in something that we can all get behind, and I want it to be as big as the World of Warcraft launch was. Cause I mean, dude, that came out of nowhere. I mean, I don't know. We were teenagers, so it's not like we were
Plugged into
in the
that
in yeah, or
space.
plugged in. But it was like, it was so unbelievably big for this game franchise that we all loved. Like we all loved Warcraft.
Yeah.
Um, and it was just like all of a sudden there was this entire interactive world that was so big. Like I was never gonna see the end of it. Right? I played that game nonstop for 4 years as a teenager, and it's like I barely cracked into level 60.
Yeah.
It's like I want it. I want that again, dude. And I don't care if it's Star Wars. I don't care if it's Lord of the Rings. I don't care if it's something completely brand new. I just want that same massive MMO to drop out of nowhere again, and sweep the world.
I'm with you. It's got to bring something new to the table, though. For me, no matter what it is, if I start a character and I'm just fucking in orc in overalls, and they're like, "Hey man, can you kill 10 boars?" Like, I'm not gonna. Like, nope. I'm sure fucking not gonna do that.
That's
You can go
exactly
straight
what
to
I want to
hell.
do. That's exactly what I want to do.
No, like fuck. Yeah, I need more engagement. I need more interesting stuff. I like that, WoW started dipping into it, starting with, I would say, Wrath, like actually making the villain appear as you're leveling and like, threaten you and leave you story-wise, like chasing something, and new mechanics that are being brought into these other MMOs and games like that are interesting. But like when I look at New World, I'm like, man, I still just see people picking berries, going into menus to craft a table, sell it on an auction house. Like I need something drastically different for like a massive like guild based kind of experience for me.
That I've never really gotten into like the massive guild thing, and I think that's been kind of hard for me with MMOs. Like I like the small, me and the five homies playing together.
That
I've
yes.
I've never been able to just get into like the anonymous. I join this guild and they have a Discord, and I see them all in there hanging out, but it's like I never just want to like jump into a voice Discord with like 10 people I don't know. Like I don't know what I'm gonna talk. Like I
Yeah. No,
that's
I'm
daunting to
totally
me.
with you. Back then, I don't know. It was definitely easier for me. I think the big thing was it was a mix of that though. It was the big guild thing, but at the same time, I was with some real life friends in that guild. We,
Yeah.
th- I had the time for one to dedicate to that kind of thing, and yeah, it's a space that I can never see myself in again. At least in that level of commitment that I had, and wow, that was part of the reason it made it so special.
Mhm.
And I look back fondly on it. Like I don't regret spending way too many hours playing that game because I loved it, but I don't think I'll ever be able to recreate it. And I think as soon as that magic started dying and I was recognizing that, that was when I jumped ship. I'm like, the part of this I loved is faded away. I need to, chase a different high.
Yeah. Well, I think one of our internets is starting to crap out because I'm hearing kind of weird audio artifacts. It might just be
Oh,
Discord, so who knows. Um,
we
but
can
I
call
think,
it.
yeah, I think we're probably getting about that point. Anyways,
And bring it up.
um, wrap us
Oh,
up,
yeah.
man.
All right. Well, yeah. Thanks for listening to us rant about these games. Hopefully, it was interesting to you as much as it was to me. You can check us on not Spotify. Apparently, we got pulled from it. I'm trying to figure out why. When I'm uploading this video, which I'm going to try to put up very soon, so that it can actually beat you and Xell to TwitchCon, so people can hear that piece of it. But yeah, thank you for listening. Check the description for all of our socials and things like that. We will be back with one recorded with probably Red and Xell once they return from TwitchCon. We'll talk about that. That could be,
Oh yeah, that'd be fun to debrief.
good thing to, yeah. But aside from that, I'm Warren. That's Red. I love you. And goodbye.
Peace.